Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're heading to the absolute roof of the world. We're embarking on a journey to one of the most remote, punishing, and frankly cinematic landscapes on the entire planet, Western Tibet. This is a place where the air is incredibly thin, the environment takes absolutely no prisoners, and the sheer massive scale of the mountains makes you feel, well, incredibly small. But hidden within this vast, arid expanse are profound mysteries, vanished empires, and geographical anomalies that have completely baffled historians and scientists for decades.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, the Zanzibar Earth Forest. Second, the Guge Kingdom. Third, the Twin Lakes. And finally, Mount Kailash.
All right, part one, the Zonda Earth Forest, the physical reality. Okay, so picture this. You're standing at literally 6,000 meters above sea level. You're completely surrounded by this vast arid wasteland that just stretches on forever. It's an extreme, thin air environment where nature has spent thousands of years carving out these incredibly dramatic, almost photorealistic clay formations. It's a land of searing, punishing heat in the summer and brutal, freezing cold in the winter. It is breathtaking for sure, but make no mistake, it is an incredibly harsh physical reality to try and survive in. Moving right along to part two, the Guge Kingdom, the human endeavor. Now, here is a massive mystery for you. For 7 centuries, the Guge Kingdom was a flourishing hub of commerce, art, and religion, right on the Silk Road. We're talking a beacon of wealth, trading gold, silk, and spices. It was the absolute heart of a Tibetan Buddhist renaissance, and it was an empire twice the size of Great Britain. But then suddenly, in 1630, it just completely vanished. Poof, gone from history. So how does that even happen?
When the Italian explorer Giuseppe Tucci became the first Westerner to photograph the ruins back in 1933, he was just blown away. He famously described the capital city, Tsaparang, as a dead city which seems to be keeping vigil over a tormented waste of stone. And you can see why. The kingdom left behind a massive 300-meter-high capital that was quite literally carved directly into the side of a clay mountain.
And the way they built this city created a super rigid social structure. Tsaparang was basically an 80-story high ancient clay skyscraper. Your social status strictly dictated exactly where you lived. Down at the base, you had commoners and laborers living in clay caves, which actually provided vital insulation from that extreme weather we talked about. Halfway up the mountain, you'd find the monks and the merchants. And right at the absolute summit, taking in an unobstructed 360-degree view, sat the king in his virtually impregnable royal palace. So look at this timeline, because it's a really wild ride. In 1076, they host the Great Prayer Festival, which totally cements them as a spiritual powerhouse. Fast forward a few centuries to 1624, and Jesuit missionaries from the West arrive, throwing a radical new dynamic into the mix. And then, just 6 short years later, in 1630, this mighty, 700-year-old kingdom just entirely collapses. The actual fall of Guge reads like a tragic movie script. It all started with a really bitter sibling rivalry between the king and his own brother, who happened to be the chief abbot of the powerful tolling monastery. When the king welcomed those Jesuit missionaries and let them build a chapel, the abbot felt completely betrayed. So what does he do? He calls in the neighboring Ladakhi army. The Ladakhis lay siege to the capital. They couldn't reach the summit, so they actually forced Guge's own captured citizens to build this massive stone siege tower, subjecting them to horrific physical abuse in the process. Ultimately, just to stop the suffering of his people, the king surrendered. He and his family were reportedly executed, bringing a very dark, solemn end to a once glorious empire. But beyond all the war and human treachery, there was actually a silent, natural enemy at work here too. The region's climate was shifting. Desertification set in, meaning the water sources the Guge desperately relied on for farming and their aqueducts were just drying up. Over the centuries, nature simply reclaimed the land, sealing the kingdom's fate for good. Let's move on to part 3, the Twin Lakes, the ethereal duality. This is wild. Just a short distance apart, sitting at a crazy altitude of 4,590 meters, you have 2 connected bodies of water with this striking, almost eerie duality. First is Lake Manasaravar. It's freshwater, perfectly round like the sun, supports life, and miraculously never freezes over, despite being that high up. It represents purity and light. But right next to it is Rakshastal, literally called the Demon Lake. It's salt water, shaped like a crescent moon,
entirely lifeless and incredibly turbulent. Locals even call it the Ghost Lake because its dark waters are notorious for vanishing and reappearing. It's just a stunning, literal, natural representation of light and darkness.
Around these sacred waters is where you'll see pilgrims performing a ritual known as the Kora. This isn't a casual hike. It's a highly demanding 52-kilometer trek where people are breathing freezing elements, super thin air, and the kind of physical exhaustion that would easily break an average person. Some devotees even do the entire journey through full-body prostrations, which takes years to finish. It is a profound, ultimate test of human endurance and faith.
Which brings us to the final part of our explainer, Part 4, Mount Kailash, the unclimbed enigma.
You have to understand, Mount Kailash isn't just another mountain. It is considered the absolute spiritual center, the axis mundi, for millions of believers across 4 major religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and the ancient Bon religion. Okay, get ready for this number because the mountain's location is a complete geographical anomaly. Mount Kailash sits at an exact, slightly eerie distance of 6,666 kilometers from Stonehenge. It is also exactly 6,666 kilometers from the North Pole. And as if that wasn't astonishing enough, its distance to the South Pole is exactly double that, 13,332 kilometers. And that perfect symmetry continues right down to the life-giving geography around it. From the immediate area surrounding Mount Kailash flow 4 of the most vital rivers in all of Asia, and each one heads directly toward a cardinal point. You've got the Indus to the north, the Brahmaputra to the east, the Karnali to the south, and the Sutlej to the west. Even the physical rock face of the mountain adds to this mystique. On the south face, as the sun sets, deep vertical ice cracks and horizontal rock strata perfectly align, and they cast a shadow in the exact shape of a left-facing swastika, which is an ancient and highly auspicious symbol for these religions. On top of that, the snow formations near the peak are said to remarkably mirror the sacred Om symbol, complete with the dot in exactly the right place. Now, with thousands of people summiting Everest, you might be wondering, why has no one ever climbed Kailash? Well, it's an incredible mix of reasons. Geographically, it's brutal, with sheer, perpendicular faces of rare black rock and sudden violent blizzards. Then there's the chilling local lore. For instance, there's an infamous tale of a group of Siberian climbers who allegedly attempted the ascent. According to the legend, they experienced rapid physical aging, growing weeks' worth of hair and nails in just hours, and supposedly died of old age a year later. Finally, out of sheer respect for its sacred status, the Chinese government officially banned all climbing on the mountain back in 1980. But wait, it gets stranger. The mysteries actually extend deep inside the rock itself. Back in 1999, an expedition led by researcher Dr. Ernst Moldashev reported hearing strange internal grasping sounds, like falling stones, coming from deep within the belly of the mountain. This just threw fuel on the fire of local legends that say Kailash isn't just a natural formation, but a massive, hollow pyramid concealing the mythical, highly advanced ancient city of Shambhala. Even our modern technology stays away from Kailash. You might have heard the myth that some invisible force field grounds airplanes there. The truth? It actually comes down to the terrifying physics of commercial aviation. The region averages over 4,000 meters in elevation. If an airplane has a cabin pressure emergency mid-flight, those oxygen masks only give you about 15 to 20 minutes of air. A pilot has to immediately dive to 3,000 meters or lower to keep everyone from suffocating. But over the jagged, towering peaks of this specific region, there are simply 0 safe descent zones. So what does this all add up to? When you look at the perfect symmetry, the sacred geometry, the rivers that literally give life to millions, and the lost clay kingdoms that once guarded these secrets, is this the true designed center of the world? Or is it just a majestic, awe-inspiring mountain that we just haven't fully understood yet? I'll let you be the judge of that. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep wondering.